According to recent studies, most parents believe negative behavior is the only sign of parental influence in brain development. Antiquated ways of looking at the research on child development have led parents to believe they don't play a role in the positive development of their children's brains. Today, we want to destroy that myth.
Parents' role in children's developmental environment can even change the way a child's brain functions. Scientists have studied differences in brain function of maltreated children who have post traumatic stress disorder, comparing this population to healthy children. Focusing on these two groups, scientists want to identify if there are any cognitive and physiological differences in brain function. Research has shown that brain structures and activity appear altered in children who exhibit post traumatic stress. These children who have been maltreated or exposed to various trauma during their early development exhibit decreased brain power and consequently perform worse on various cognitive tasks. Cognitive tasks that maltreated children evidently do not perform as well on measure a variety of areas, including language, attention, executive function, memory, and psychomotor speed. All of these areas of cognitive function are involved with critical skills that children need to develop, as they greatly influence other academic and social outcomes in the long term.
Yes, parents can influence brain development, but how?
Research has shown that parental treatment throughout a child's development is related to both attitudes towards and performance in school. Scientists have studied this relationship by looking at the association between a child's reading abilities and different play activities and reading practices that parents engage in with their children at home, trying to determine if and how home life may be related to academic outcomes. The family activities analyzed gather data on certain types of activities the parents do with their child, as well as how often the parents engage in such activities. Studies show that there is a relation between the activities parents do with their children and a child's performance in school, which depicts the integral role parents have on child development. Scientists also find a relation between children's reading ability and parental opinions about certain academic and social skills a child should possess before starting school. These trends are seen in parent child dyads across different socioeconomic status, racial groups, and schooling systems. This provides further evidence for the idea that parents can influence children's reading skills through a variety of factors concerning how they interact with their child. Scientists also find that as parents engage in reading and playful activities with their children, children have more positive attitudes about school in general. This finding also demonstrates the important effect parents have on their children's outlook and attitudes, suggesting that parents should spend more time with their children to facilitate in their learning.
A body of literature further examines this association between parent child interactions and academic outcomes, demonstrating how maternal reading can positively affect brain development. Researchers explored the link between maternal shared reading quality and brain function. One study found that when mothers and their children spend shared reading time, their children's brain activated neural pathways that are linked to emerging literacy skills. This is yet another example of how quality parent child interactions provoke neural responses in children. Moreover, these neural pathways also influence complex language, social emotional processing, and executive function. It's important to point out that this study was conducted within mother child dyads that come from a low socioeconomic background. This could indicate that at risk infants are most susceptible to parental factors.
With this brief look at the research, we have found that parents not only influence brain development, but also what target areas they can impact. These are literacy skills, socio emotional processing, and importantly, executive function.
Parents have a great influence in the development of executive function. The development of a child's executive function has a critical impact on other cognitive and behavioral processes as they grow older. Previous studies have found that as our brains change, our executive function tends to develop as well. Current research uses brain executive function as a sign of brain development. due to their demonstrated correlations. Executive function is a psychological term for the ability to have self regulation, working memory, and flexible thinking. Researchers aim to find a strong correlation between children's executive function and style of parenting. According to their study, these parental factors did play a role in the children's executive function. Since brain development and executive function are correlated, it is easy to imagine that parents' influences in brain development come to light through children having better executive functions. The way parents affect their children can also be indirect. Parents might not be aware of how their mental health affects their environment their children grow up in. This study also measured parents' mental health. They controlled for anxiety, depression, and somatic complaints. They found that parental mental health and executive function were in fact correlated.
Where do we go from here?
It's hard to establish a causal relationship between brain development and parental factors. However, we can be certain that the parents do play a role in the way children learn and see the world by creating simulated environments that enrich children's brain development. Future research should aim to create new instruments of measurement that allow us to isolate the variables of parental influence in brain development. Also, future research should explore what environmental factors could strengthen or weaken this relationship. Understanding this could advance the current state of the literature on child development and help us create interventions that can cater to these needs.